it's Amy with Rogue Upholstery. We are back up and running after the Christmas holiday. We're in that weird space of time between Christmas and New Year's. And I have just a few jobs in the shop this week. Pretty light week, which is nice. But what I have in the shop today is this little dining chair. And you've seen some pictures of how the joints are separating, and they had been repaired, it looks like, at least a couple times in the past. So what I've been doing is cleaning up the joints and trying to get all of the old, or at least as much of the old glue residue off that I can. One of the glues is almost a rubberized glue. It reminds me of like a silicone caulking almost. And I know that sometimes when people have loose joints and they need just a quick repair, they'll do a DIY job with whatever they happen to have on hand, which isn't the worst thing. We understand sometimes people don't always know how to repair or really know what to use. But it really was time to do professional repair on this chair because there was just no way that things were going to stick together. There's a couple different glues in these joints. Most glues don't stick to other glues, and so if you put glue on top of glue, eventually you're going to get a loose joint again, which is what happened here. So what I decided was to repair this with epoxy glue. Typically we would not put epoxy glue on antiques or vintage pieces because there's always that chance that in the future you might need to take the frame apart again to do a repair. And that may be the case with this chair in the future, but I had to make an executive decision. This particular chair I know is going to get a lot of use. I have a lot of pressure applied to the front of the seat just by the way that it's going to be sat on. I wanted to make sure that I'm going to get a really good solid gluing job on these front joints because they're going to bear a lot of stress. Also, there's some various gaps in places. It's a fairly snug fit on the joints, but there are some little gaps here and there, and most glues are not going to fill gaps. Epoxy glue does a really good job of that, so I want to make sure that I am able to really fill in these joints with a good solid glue. If in the future it needs another repair, we will cross that bridge when we get there. It's a little tricky taking apart joints that have been glued with epoxy glue, but like I said, we'll deal with that in the future if we need to. My main concern right now is to get this chair back up and running with good solid joints that I know are glued very well, very strong connections, and should last her for quite a while. So I'm going to get back to work here. You'll get to see the steps that I'm going to take to put this back together, and I'll be back with you in the end when it's done. It's actually now a couple days later. I did some office work yesterday, didn't come out to the shop at all, but it actually gave the chair a chance to sit in clamps for an extra day. So here's the chair behind me. She's all cleaned up and polished up. I did some scratch cover treatment on her and used some Howard's beeswax and orange oil, my favorite polishing compound. Smells good. But I'm really pleased with how this chair turned out. It's got really solid joints here in the front. These were the two joints that had given out, had been repaired a couple different times with some different glues, and it just was not holding together. So we were able to take it apart, clean up the joints, glue it using epoxy glue. Again, like I said earlier in the video, that's not a recommended glue to use on antiques or vintage pieces. It's always meant to be a last resort if there's no other glue that's really going to do the job. And that was the case here with this chair. So we did use epoxy glue, and now it's very sturdy and going to last a long time. We're very happy sending this back to the customer later today or tomorrow. And there she is. So thanks so much for watching. I appreciate you guys, and looking forward to having you join me on our next project.